This is the water, and this is the well. Drink full and descend. The horse is the white of the eyes, and dark within.
Subscribe. You just hit subscribe.
Part 8 of Twin Peaks: The Return was a little nutty, and we've got a lot of ground to cover, I think. Yeah, definitely. So we're going to start off with the easy part, which is the beginning of the episode, and then we'll go into the 1945 and further before we get into a couple of Easter eggs, a little bit more plot stuff, and your comments.
Okay, so let's go back to last week. Not too far ago.
Bad Cooper was talking to Warden Murphy. He was making his requests. He wanted a car. He also wanted a friend in the glove compartment.
Raise a goner, raise a goner, raise a goner.
Wrong!
You lose! Good day, sir!
First off, we're back to the moving plot line that we came out of Part 7 with. It seems like we're staying the course.
Yes.
We've got Mr. C and Ray in the car. They're heading somewhere. They're worried about the cops. We see Mr. C execute some tradecraft with his phone. He knows that there are tracking devices on the car. They roll up on a tractor trailer and text out its license plate to lose their tail, and then he chucks the phone out the window. So far, so good, right?
Yes. Ray tries to extort Mr. C for some money before he can give him his information that he's looking for. Okay, everything's still going down the planned path that we thought it was gonna go.
Right. This is all going according to plan. Ray gets out to take a leak, and while he's doing that, we know what's happening next. Mr. C is going into the glove compartment. He's finding his friend.
Checks
loaded.
It's loaded. He checks it. Everything's good to go. All right, Ray, you're screwed. And then David Lynch turns the car around on all of us.
So Ray shoots Mr. C instead. Before he can even finish the job, it's he goes in to put one in the brain, but before he can even get the shot off, we see just the herd of black ghosty people coming at us. And that turns into some kind of crazy ritual. Ray watches in shock.
Just like all of us at home, we have the same face probably at this point.
What the hell?
During this ritual, we see the black ghost people extract what we will be referring to as the Bob Orb from the chest of Mr. C. Now, we don't know if this means that Bob is no longer with Mr. Cooper, but that might be the case. Now we might have a new Mr. Cooper going forward.
You go back, and remember when Mr. C says in the mirror,
You're still with me. That's good.
This may just be Mr. C moving forward without Bob in him. We don't know that, though, for certain.
Right. But it also means that all of those sort of plot ideas we had of Mr. Cooper sort of planning everything as things have happened throughout the series so far isn't necessarily lost yet.
No.
Because he's not dead, which is also what I think a lot of us were thinking all the way into the musical scene that follows this.
Thinking about that whole sequence leading up to the gunshot, and you think he's dead, and then it cuts straight into a Wizard of Oz, Ding Dong, the witch is dead, and who's playing it? 9 Inch Nails. Oh, excuse me. The 9 Inch Nails.
The 9-inch nail!
I know I'm the broken record about Mulholland Drive, but just a little connection to make there. The theme of the MC in the nightclub is totally reminiscent of the theater in Mulholland Drive.
Oh, I love it.
And if this continues, I would not be surprised if we see that guy again.
Now, the big thing we can take from that, too, before we get into everything else that happened, Ray talks to Philip Jeffries' line, apparently, in his voicemail.
Ray talks to Jeffries. He says that Cooper got some help from somewhere. So definitely an awareness of not just being freaked out. He's processing that experience.
Ray kind of has an idea of the otherworldly situations going on here.
Right. And he even alludes to that when he says that
I saw something in Cooper. It's maybe the key to what this is all about.
And what I think is important about that is that it shows that the Jeffries side of this plot line is also investigating and trying to find things out. They don't know everything either.
And then he brings up that if he's not dead, well, I got another plan for him at the farm. Now, whatever that farm is, we don't know just yet. Dead Dog Farm? Right, that's the episode. Awesome, guys. Thanks for watching so much. Make sure to hit us up in the comment section below. And as always, keep it... Okay, fine. We're going to do it. All right, let's do this. We got to talk about everything that happened. Let's do it. Coffee?
Okay, coffee.
Cheers. All right. Okay. I'm ready. All right, so I sit down. This episode's fucking awesome. Mr. C. Cooper is dead, and now we have Nine Inch Nails playing, and then the episode hits us with a flashback. Oh, no.
So, right off the bat, though, I'm thinking now we're definitely tying things into secret history.
Yep.
Like, this is the first nuclear bomb test. We know Douglas Milford was there. We're going into some esoteric, like, alien and nuclear history stuff, and that is not really what happened.
No. And right when you go inside the mushroom cloud, you get the particles, the firework effects, and then this is the moment where David Lynch fans and Twin Peaks fans collided. Listen, I love Twin Peaks, but I'm a huge David Lynch fan, and this was fucking awesome. I loved it.
I actually loved it too. I'm usually kind of a prickly pear about when I feel like there's an homage happening to Stanley Kubrick, because I'm a huge Stanley Kubrick fan. And the first few minutes of this sequence are like straight out of the Stargate in 2001. The Penderecki score is reminiscent of that, and also Penderecki was used in The Shining. So there's definitely like a feeling of homage there.
What should be done with him?
I don't know.
I don't think that's true. I think you have some very definite ideas about what should be done with Danny, and I'd like to know what they are.
Recapping this little segment, we have a nuclear explosion that sort of opens up the gate,
Yes.
or portal, or whatever.
It lets in the pain and sorrow.
We see the convenience store, which may be related to the convenience store that is the portal to the lodge. From there, we start to see that this is maybe more of an origin story about where Bob came from. We've got the garmonbozia.
Let's do that again.
And then we see the experiment, which we've seen before, and that is spewing the badness out into the world. We believe at this point that this is sort of like a Bob origin story, because we know that the history of a lot of this darkness goes way before 1945.
I don't think this is the origin of the Black Lodge, White Lodge. This is the origin possibly of just the evil spewing out into the world after the Trinity experiment.
This specific catastrophic event.
Yes.
Which is sort of like the modern part of the story. Next, we're flying over the ocean we've seen before from a previous episode, and we come to a rocky island on top of which sits a white palace type of structure, and we fly in through a tiny window in that structure, and then we're in a small room.
And who would he see in there? The Giant, but again, the name is not the Giant in the credits. It's just
Question marks.
No name yet.
So there's a woman sitting there listening to music. We've got the phonograph. We've also got in the room this large cone-shaped thing that we've also seen before from when Cooper went through from the Red Room earlier in the series. And these are like everywhere in this sequence too. There's many of them. So the cone-shaped electric thing in the room is making noise. The woman is just sitting there sort of tolerating it. The Giant shows up. He stares off into space for a moment, and then very sort of slowly and casually turns the thing off and leaves the room.
Yes. I have to think that's an alarm going off to let them know shit has gone down.
Right, because from there he travels at a snail's pace through another part of the building and comes to a movie theater. And in the movie theater, as the screen comes on, we're actually seeing an exact replay of the sort of genesis of darkness that we just talked about. After this, the Giant floats up into the air. The woman comes into the room. Gold stuff just starts emanating from his head into like a pool above his head, and then out of that pool comes a round orb that floats down to the woman that has the face of Laura Palmer in it, and then she kisses the orb and lets it go, and then it drifts up into like a pipe or horn of some variety that then turns to face the screen. There's a series of gears and electrical work, and then it passes the orb into the movie screen, and the orb goes to Earth. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, I think that, you know, we got a lot of sympathy for having to cover this, but I mean, so far, this is about as straightforward as a plot can be. So, a couple ideas about this that I have is that, first of all, I think we're in the White Lodge. I think that, you know, what this does is that this gives perspective to the very first scene of the entire series, where Dale is sitting with the giant. That's where we get 430. That's where we get Richard and Linda. And it now creates the possibility for us that that scene takes place in the past, that it's not directly related to the other Red Room scenes, that almost a whole universe of possibility opens up now because of we've now actually got more context to those characters.
Every time you see that room, what is it? It's only in black and white.
Right. However, when Dale leaves the Red Room and he comes to that mysterious place where we first see the ocean, that sequence is in color. And it's very likely or very possible that that is actually a different part of the timeline, depending on how time works in the White Lodge. But his experience there with the maybe Ronette Pulaski and the mother banging on the door is like just another part of time in this place. Something else to think about too is that now we're seeing, you know, with the presence of that like electrical cone thing, and remembering back to Major Briggs's head in space, this adds more to the Major Briggs was in the White Lodge and traveling in and out of it over time as well.
Is this future or is this past? He could have been traveling to the White Lodge and popped out present day where he got his head cut off.
Right. Now, who is Senorita Dido? I don't know.
They have this motherly vibe we saw. We saw the evil experiment possibly spewing out the creation of Bob. And then we have this Senorita Dido spewing out the good to counteract what just happened.
Definitely there's a connection there. We see very clearly this is a response to the evil spewing out. And it's interesting too that it's like this starts to give the impression of like the cosmic chess game. Like they're sending something to Earth, but that isn't going to really like blossom for another like 30 years when Laura Palmer comes out. So it's definitely got this long cosmic game thing going on, and I really like that.
If that orb really is Laura Palmer, that changes everything.
Right. That totally elevates the role of Laura Palmer in the cosmic scheme of things. And like you say, that takes these interactions to another level. And broken record time. This is similar to how in Mulholland Drive there's a point where you kind of see the spiritual elevation and concept of the two female leads, where Camilla's doppelganger and Betty or Diane, depending on how you're looking at it, become more clearly just a sort of spiritual part of that universe. And we see that most clearly come through in a theater environment. So that's that part. Now our flashback goes forward in time. We go from 1945 to 1956. Just to plug in here real quick before we get to what happens in 1956, in the Secret History of Twin Peaks, we do learn that in that interim period of time, Jack Parsons, who Douglas Milford investigates, did go out to the same desert to perform a ritual and to find a gate there. We don't know much more than that, but it might come up, so it's worth mentioning.
Okay, so then we fast forward to 1956, where we see that egg that was spewed out earlier hatch.
Right, and we get a beetle frog
/ rabbit thing.
Yeah, that just sort of crawls its way across the sand out of frame.
Yep.
Totally horrifying and kind of beautiful creature effects, if you ask me. Next, we see the black ghost people materialize in the desert. and start heading off into the darkness. They come across a road. A couple driving down the highway come across these black ghost people, and one of them comes up to the car with a cigarette and says,
Got a light?
And now this is where we're formally introduced to the Woodsman character.
right, now they speak.
Yes, we now know that they can talk.
The couple wisely gets the heck out of Dodge, and we go over to now a kind of almost bittersweet, innocent, awkward first date.
I was on edge that whole scene where they're just walking down the street.
Oh yeah, she finds the penny on the ground and it's heads up and it's good luck. Mm-hmm. Sure.
They have a little moment. He gives her a kiss.
He's walked her home. Very sweet.
Yes.
Very sweet. Okay, now we're over to KPJK Radio with My Prayer by the Platters booming, and the Woodsman approaches the radio station and it starts to get ugly.
Close to mine.
He goes in there, he finds a woman still asking for a light.
Just light his cigarette, damn it.
Does nobody in New Mexico have a lighter? Next, the Woodsman goes into the booth where the DJ is, asks for a light, and then sort of subdues him while taking over the radio. And from here we see that there's people throughout the whole area that are listening to the radio, including the girl from the date, and people at the diner and the gas station. And then he says,
This is the water. And this is the well. Drink full and ascend. The horse is the white of the eyes and dark within.
over and over and over.
again.
What this does, though, is it has a calming, sleepy effect on everyone in town. I don't know, it would have scared the hell out of me, but everyone else just sort of succumbs to sleep. And the next thing we see is our frog, beetle, rabbit, monster friend fly up to the window of a house, into the house, and then crawl gruesomely, slowly into the mouth of the young girl from the date.
That seems to be the seed for either Bob or Laura. I'm on the edge to think that's Bob because what you hear at the very end of that sequence during the rolling credits, you hear the static, the electricity, the evil brewing inside.
Absolutely. I mean, I think what we see is that this town is being infested by the evil.
Yes.
And very likely, because we've met these characters, this one is Bob.
So the one line, the horse is the white of the eyes and the dark within, you can bring up the white horse that we've seen multiple times in Twin Peaks.
Right. The white horse is a recurring theme.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it when Cooper was leaving the Red Room. We've also seen it way back in Fire Walk With Me days with Sarah Palmer.
Yep, she saw it just after Leland drugged her, and also a lot of things. The white horse involves elements of drug use and just evil spewing out in the world.
Death. Okay, so that pretty much covers the things that go on in the episode. And if there's anything that you guys saw that we didn't bring up here, please leave it in the comments because it's definitely a brain teaser.
We got 2 weeks before the next new episode, so let us know.
Okay, so now we want to move on to some Easter eggs that you caught that you thought were pretty cool.
Yeah, they're little ones. They're not too big, but they're awesome. So when the Woodsman disappears, what do you hear? You hear a horse in the background. That's awesome. So again, the white horse again. Evil's coming. Harbinger of death.
Next up, if you're looking at Mr. Cooper's cell phone while he's typing in the license plate of the truck in front of them on the freeway, you see the autocorrect. And one of the autocorrects before he finishes typing in the license plate is Degas. Degas, of course, is famous for some ballerina paintings.
And then also one of my favorite shots of season 3 so far harkens back to one of his paintings. I thought that was awesome.
One of the things that we also keep coming back to when trying to figure out things in the series is the card that Bob showed to Daria earlier in the series. And there have been a lot of interpretations and comparisons. It looks a little bit like Cooper when he's coming through the hole in the glass room. It looks a little bit like the Owl Cave ring, and now we've got one more.
And now apparently another link is the Mother Experiment character that we saw spinning out that garmonbozia.
Right, in a very similar pose.
Yes, in a very similar pose. And what's cool about that scene too, the arms are bent backwards.
Ah,
Sometimes me arms bend back.
If you go back to Fire Walk with Me in the scene where Mike is screaming at Leland/Bob, he says, and now you look back at the convenience store, what do you see in the window? Cans! That's cool.
One last one comes with the Woodsman, who had a, really sort of Lincoln-esque beard going on.
Well, the actor who plays the Woodsman, you can actually hire that guy to play Lincoln. You can book him to show up at your kid's next birthday party as Abraham Lincoln if you wanted to. Who knows what Lincoln has to do with this Twin Peaks storyline, but that's kind of cool.
Well, Abraham Lincoln is a vampire slayer.
This is confirmed.
Okay, let's get to some of the comments we got from the audience on YouTube and Twitter.
So we got a correction from the end of last week's episode when someone burst into the diner and screams,
Hey! Anybody seen Billy?
It's Billy, not Bing. Bing is Riley Lynch's character in the episode.
Right, the producers confirmed that there was a typo in the closed captions. And in fairness, I think we just heard what we wanted to hear. It makes sense in hindsight, too, that you would see the named character finally credited for being a speaking part in the closing titles.
Yeah.
Robert Ward in the YouTube comments said, the sound in Ben Horn's room from last week, where they were trying to figure out where the sound was, Tibetan Bull or not, is the same sound made by the arm when he rubs his hands together in the 25 years later Red Room scene. I think that's actually a pretty good catch.
Yeah.
Like, just, again, the themes of sound in every episode, it's totally important to be listening as much as you're watching, and that's a good catch. Lastly, from the YouTube comments last week, Oh Whoa Ye says, I was quite surprised by the odd hair and poser demeanor and was wondering where Lynch was going with Diane. Obviously, anyone who is touched by Bob is very damaged if they survive. The white hair, a symbol of being hurt by Bob? I hadn't thought of that, because we've never seen Diane before. We don't know whether she always had white hair or when she got white hair, and it just made me realize, crap. She could have had the Leland Palmer experience, and we just don't know it yet. Lastly, we want to thank Ush on Twitter, and actually quite a few people on Twitter and in the YouTube comments from last week, for showing support for tackling Part 8 of The Return, because woo howdy.
Thank you so much.
2 weeks before the next episode, so we're going to try and produce a cool feature in there for you guys, and let us know what you're interested in looking at.
Yeah, let us know if you want us to do more deep divey breakdowns into specific characters of Twin Peaks, maybe Major Briggs. Let us know in the comment section below what you want to see. As always, guys, later.